What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about more so this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in Lucid, go over some of the data points, and what weekly options I'm going to be doing. Because a couple of videos ago, I did say that I do weekly options. A lot of people expressed some interest, so I'm going to go over that. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate it. And with that said, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did bounce off a very strong support level, so $5.82. So generally speaking, that's kind of what gave it a nice boost up as well. So hopefully that is going to break the downtrend it has been on, but still regardless, it is low percentile of Bollinger Band and below the 50-day moving average. But I'm going to talk on all that. When it comes down to data points, there's going to be one wild ride this week, because starting off on right here, Wednesday, GDP. And when it comes down to this specific data point, based on the forecast, it is anticipated to be fairly positive. So when it comes down to what Powell recently did say, I think a lot of people are going to be watching this data point very, very closely, because if this is based on what the forecast is, very positive, then technically it might be inverse, because Powell's going to be watching this data, and this might give him ammunition, if positive, to raise the rates during the next meeting, which is on September the 20th. So like I've complained in the past, positive data sometimes turns the market very negative, because they are now fearful of what Powell could do. And it's been like that for a long time now, for about a year and a half, which is very unfortunate and makes it very difficult to kind of read on what might potentially happen on a broader scale. So in my opinion, I definitely will be watching the GDP very closely, and you never know, hopefully we might have negative GDP, then Powell won't really have any justification. I don't know, that's a little bit more of an inverse way of thinking about it. But on Thursday, there is PCE, and then on Friday, there is non-farm payroll. So those are the big three that you want to watch for. But like I said, more specifically GDP. And then of course, moving on, there is companies that are unveiling their earnings this week, and two big ones that might influence Lucid stock price, one of which is NIO, second is Polestar. So of course, they're not Tesla. So whatever happens to Tesla, good, bad, and the ugly, does trickle down in one way or another to Lucid. But of course, NIO and Polestar are both in regions that Lucid is going to be in. So depending on what they do give for future guidance, or if they talk on demand is reducing or whatever else, that could potentially affect Lucid. So definitely those are ones that you need to watch for. So Tuesday before market opens, and same goes for on Thursday, so Polestar. So what's your viewpoint on these two earnings? Do you think it's going to be positive, negative? What's your kind of thoughts on all that? And then when it comes down to Lucid specific, there's only one thing that might influence the stock price in a positive way, and that is this Telluride, if I'm saying that right. So they're doing a festival, so a film festival, and that is kicking off on Thursday, so August the 31st, all the way to September the 4th. And the reasoning why I feel like that might be positive is Lucid has definitely stepped up their game on a lot of their social medias. So they're taking very good pictures, film of all of these events, and again, they're kind of putting Lucid vehicles in a different light from what they previously were. So whoever's doing their marketing is on point, and I completely agree, and I think that they're doing a phenomenal job. Even on their website, I don't know if you have actually looked on their website at all recently, but there's been a lot of good updates, and it looks very just user friendly, whereas in the past, not so much. So once again, I feel like this is something that could definitely positively affect and help Lucid. So when it comes down to it, like I mentioned, a lot of volatility, and that's not even counting the technicals and stuff or shorts. So I'll give you guys a quick overview of what shorts are going to be at least doing most likely into next week. So short score is currently 75, utilization is 89.45%, and looking right here, shorts did return 1.51 million shares on Friday. So the way I interpret this data is them returning on a green day does show that it's justified and is validated that it can easily go up from here. 23.99% of the free float is being shorted, 198.58 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost of borrow average is 2.54%, so very, very small in my opinion. So definitely some interesting stuff to consider going into next week. As far as options though, there was on Friday $1.74 million in calls being purchased versus 1.2 million in puts. So similar to the actual short data, this is positive, shows that people are anticipating for it to trend up. And if you are very optimistic, this is all the calls only, and it has expiry dates, strike prices. Based on this information, it does show that it might be trading between the 550 and 650 range. So definitely some pretty positive stuff. Obviously not necessarily the 550, but potentially, you never know, based on the technicals, it could happen. And big money wasn't necessarily getting in so much on Friday. So these are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market. And I think that's kind of normal for a Friday, because with Lucid, there hasn't been that many transactions as much as it once was, I guess, during the beginning part of the year. These are all the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So dark pool is very popular as usual. Dark pool is obviously linked to shorting and such and stuff like that. So when it comes down to it, there hasn't been any recent analyst ratings, nothing like that. So don't really need to talk on that. But a lot of people, like I mentioned, expressed some interest as far as what options I am going to be doing into next week. So I never, like I said, like to short a company. There's several different things I like to do on my weekly options, either sell puts or sell calls, so covered calls. So both of which are very profitable, because you can technically, if you time it right, look at the technicals, then you could easily just collect some premiums, and it's ultimately free money. And actually, before I touch on this, I'll just go over the technicals, because I think I overlooked that a little bit. So as of right now, like I mentioned, based on Friday, it did bounce off of this S3, so $5.76. And just even talking on Lucid just vaguely, I have mentioned many times that technically Lucid has just been suppressed. It should not be trading between this S3 and this S2. A lot of stocks, EV stocks, were even on Friday branching away from this S2 to the S1 to the S1 to the pivot. So you can kind of just see these as step ladders ultimately. So a lot of resistance and support points throughout here, and Lucid should not be trading between this S3 and the S2, because the only stocks that are currently trading within that range are ones that are very reliant on debt. So they're suffering. They're just not, I don't want to say garbage, but they're not doing too well. And so Lucid should not be in that whole criteria. I have absolutely no idea why it's trading there. Like I mentioned, just it's being suppressed by shorts and many other entities out there, a lot of naked shorting, because there's a lot of failure to delivers right now with Lucid as well. So I do feel that if there's some positive stuff that does come out as a surprise, which you never know, there could be an unveiling that is new, because there's those two launches. There's going to be the Sapphire and also the Gravity. For instance, if they randomly move that up, then that could be extremely positive. But you guys get what I'm talking about, right? There has to be something positive for it to correct. And when it does correct, it's going to go up very fast. But technically, going into next week, $6.43 is a point that you need to watch for. So that is a resistance, and you really will want to watch this $5.76 support to hold. If it doesn't, then most likely it's going to go down to that 550 range. But I do feel in reality it could have the possibility of just trading between this S2 and this S1. And looking as far as right here, momentum shows number of retail investors have been getting in. Stochastic is currently at 9, which is considered very oversold, but there's no trend right now, so it's not really bullish or bearish. So when it comes down to options, you can kind of take a lot of this information that I mentioned and kind of put it in and give you a viewpoint on where things might be going. Realistically, I do feel that it is most likely going to trade between around $6 to $6.50. So you can technically use that information and just do options. So when it comes down to options, there's two ways that you can technically do that. You can do covered calls or sell puts. That's typically what you like to do, and it's free money, especially through premiums and so forth. So as far as me selling puts, I do feel that around the $6 range might be ideal. And when it comes down to selling puts, technically it's a win-win, especially on companies that you do like. And on a side note, I just want to say I'm not a financial advisor, so make sure you guys always do your own due diligence, double check everything and all that other fun jazz. But when it comes down to selling puts, like I mentioned, it is a win-win, because if I choose the $6 strike price and 17 cents, that was the last selling on Friday, so let's just assume that is the same price for this. So if it is at 17 cents, then yes, that's going to equate to free money. So $17 essentially per option. So it's not too much, but again, it's free money essentially. And worst case scenario, let's say it does stay within this range and or even below that $6 price point, then yeah, so be it. I buy more at $6. So this is why I like to sell puts, because technically you can buy companies for the price that you want, and if not, if it does go up, then yeah, you collect the premium. So it's kind of a win-win, if that makes sense. So I like to do that on companies that I generally do like, especially for the long term. And when it comes down to selling covered calls, this is where it's kind of interesting. And once again, you definitely need to be cautious, because if things go up and you have a covered call, then you kind of are stuck, and kind of negative. So when it comes down to Lucid, like I said, it could technically go up very fast once a good piece of news does come out, or one of those things that I mentioned, or the data points. Then Lucid could really correct up to maybe the high sixes, on which if you did sell a $6 covered call, then you're kind of SOL, if that makes sense. So when it comes down to covered calls, I like to play it a little bit more cautiously. So most likely I would do the 650. I know based on this, it's not necessarily the most exciting stuff because it's very little premiums, but generally you don't have to do it first thing on Monday. You can kind of watch. So if Lucid does have a dip first thing, that is when you can technically sell your put, and vice versa. If Lucid does have a spike up, then you can easily collect some more additional premiums because these prices will go up. And then you can obviously sell your covered call for 650. So once again, that is what I'm going to be watching. So just between the 6 to 650 range for the strike prices, that's what I'm going to be doing this week. But you never know. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right when it comes down to the technicals, but I do feel that a lot of the data today, or that will be coming out this week, will kind of counteract each other. But again, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below, and as far as what options you're going to be doing this week, what's your take on all of that? But technically, you could also as well just extend your expiry date a little bit further to collect some additional premiums based on that. But when it comes down to it, for February 2024, even at this price, $1.15 for a covered call essentially is just not advantageous. Lucid could go above $7 even next month potentially. So there's a lot of different things why I don't like to do longer term options. So once again, let me know your thoughts on all that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And one final thing I just wanted to share with you, take advantage of amazing promos, and that is with Moomoo. Link in the description below and also the comments. Moomoo also offers $0 commission, free level 2 trading. But if you throw $100 at this account, you get 5 free stocks. Each stock could be valued up to $2,000, and you get a $50 cash reward. So it's a win-win in my opinion, but this is only available for Americans, so just be aware of that. But if you do live in Canada, they do have a app that is coming out, so you can sign up for this only using your phone number. No other information is required. Then you can enter to win some gift cards such as Tim's, which obviously doesn't get more Canadian than Tim's, and Amazon, and many other things. So with that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.